Sure, I can.
Hi
Awesome.
everyone, welcome back to the Chasing Pars Golf Podcast. Where in this episode, I'm joined by pro caddy Jonathan Katzman. Jonathan, thank you so much for coming on. This is the first proper caddy chat since I believe Ryan Hilton, and all the way back in March. So yeah, it's now
Oh, wow.
December, so it's been a while.
Yeah, yeah, one for the good guys. Appreciate you having me on.
So how's life for you back home in the States after so you just said there off air actually that you've actually well not officially retired but semi-retired as such for the
Yeah,
caddy game.
appreciate the breaking news segment, right?
Straight
But
away.
yeah, off season's great. I'm just outside of Phoenix, Arizona. It's sunny. The weather's really consistent here in the winter. I mean, there's a reason why a lot of golfers live in this area. So yeah, can't complain. Just kind of contemplating what's next, but heck of a 5 years caddying, that's for sure.
So, with that breaking news, we might as well dive straight into it. So,
Yeah.
5 seasons on tour as a professional caddy, you've kind of come up with a decision to kind of, step down from caddying, at least for just now. As you said, never say never. But in terms of decision making, was this always on the cards for you?
I think so. I wouldn't say at one point, despite having a pretty successful year 2 seasons ago, I guess the season this past year is over, so we can say 2 seasons ago, I ever thought that I would make a full-time career out of this. As I did it more and more, while I thought that I got a lot sharper on the golf course and had much more capacity to be value add, I kind of realized how much time I spent on the road. And the harsh reality of the job is it's just a lot of time away, right? I've enjoyed seeing the world. I've been to probably 15 countries to caddy, and it's been neat seeing golf courses in the on the other side of the world, different cultures. I'm a big foodie, so that part of the job's been awesome. But it's just a lot of time away. There's a lot of unpredictability to the job, and as we were talking about just before you hit play, I worked in investment management for 3 years after college and have always thought that I would go back to an office environment and start some sort of a real career. But cool job to say the least. I wish at maybe right after college I'd gotten into the caddying thing because it can be a young man's game. But here we are, and 5 years went by really, really quickly. It's
I mean,
crazy. I mean, I can remember what I was doing right before the first event I caddied on the Korn Ferry. It was freezing cold, like in Louisiana, and I remember it like it was yesterday. So yeah, 5 seasons flew by pretty fast.
yeah, you just said there it's kind of a young man's game. You don't look that old, mate. So I wouldn't quite go I wouldn't quite go that far.
Yeah. And there are plenty of guys out there who have been doing it for 30 to 40 years, and they've got the best stories. They've seen how the game has changed in terms of how it's played, the technology, how golf courses have played, and um, anytime you need bits and pieces or you needed bits and pieces of advice out there, the old guys were there to kind of prop you up and tell you what they knew. So yeah, I'm gonna miss seeing some of those characters out there for sure. They were really good resources.
So how would you kind of assess your 2025 season on tour as a caddy in general? We'll go into Guseva in depth in a little bit.
Yeah, for
But
sure.
after Guseva, you caddied for Anna Foster for a few events.
I did.
I believe that was some of your best times as well.
Loved it.
Li
Yeah.
Liqi Zeng as well in
Yep.
China as well. You got a tied second on the LET. Um,
Correct. Yep.
so so in terms of 2025 in general, how would
hmm
you describe it?
If I looked at the course of the entire season, I mean, it's hard to say that it's really the one that you want to leave the industry from. There were a lot more downs than ups, but that's just part of life. That's part of a caddy's career. Um, so certainly not the season that I thought selfishly I or my players would have. 2024 ended on such a high note with a few top tens, and I think Nataliya expecting to bring pretty good form in the 2025 that I thought things would really pick up just like that, and that she was only going to keep improving as a player. It's right, not a rookie year anymore out on the LPGA, so figured there'd be more comfort. And unfortunately, things just kind of for both of us, we didn't really capture that spark that we had towards the end of the 2024 season. And as we talked about before, going live here, I had always thought that this year might be my last year doing it. Um, got a lot of interest outside of golf, and I, recognized that in my early 30s, it was probably time to pivot to something else and thought I was going to do military, which hasn't really shaped up as planned. So I had a few ideas in the back of my mind, and I think that kind of interfered with some of the enthusiasm that I used to have when I got to a golf course to walk at 7 o'clock in the morning on a Monday or something like that. So yeah, took a little break, and Anna needed somebody for some LET starts. So thankfully, Glenn Osowski, who I consider my caddying mentor here in the States, though it's almost like he's caddied more LET for the past couple seasons, put me in touch with Anna, and I'd say it was a great reintroduction to caddying. I kind of had a new energy out there with her, and the situation on the LET can just be a little bit tough because the purses are what, 300,000 euros a week, which is about 350,000 US dollars. I think it's kind of difficult. Bless you. You doing all right?
Yeah, sorry, I was just
There he
muting
is.
myself there just because I was doing a mixture of a sneeze and a cough at the same time, so that was
Oh
not good.
man. Yeah, I'm sure the weather's brutal, by the way, in the UK.
It is, don't worry about that in
Oh
Scotland.
man. But yeah, it's not Scottsdale, although we got two direct flights from Heathrow to Phoenix during the winter here, so the Brits have figured out even this is a pretty good place to be. Um, yeah, but like Anna was a breath of fresh air, very talented, extremely good ball striker. She's probably a person who matured quite a bit because she went to college in the US, despite being from over in Europe. Um, and when you talk to her, she guess I'm getting on the Anna Foster marketing train. Like you can tell she's been brought up well. She's thoughtful. It was kind of like caddying for a veteran, despite her being probably 22 or 23 years old. So, really thankful to her for bringing me on. And we actually had some discussions about me doing a couple events in Asia for her, but she ended up having her brother fly halfway across the world to help her out. So, she's somebody I certainly wish well. Um, had some opportunities back in the States. At the time, I wasn't really sure that I wanted to get back into caddying. I was kind of content at the moment just to cut things loose and focus my time 100% on figuring out what I was going to do next, just because finding a job basically is a full-time job, as I'm learning the hard way now. Um, but yeah, did a couple for Robin Choi, didn't go to Europe with her, and then got the word on the street from a friend that Liqi needed somebody. And I speak decent Mandarin Chinese. It's not fluent by any means, but I think Liqi is somebody who benefited or would have benefited from having a Chinese speaker as her caddy. So had a brief chat with her, decided to sign on for a few events, and we met up in Portland. So towards the end of the LPGA season, did a few on the Epson, um, second stage of Q school, and then she asked if I wanted to go over to Asia with her. And I spent a lot of time in Asia during college, did some internships in Hong Kong, and it's one of the parts of the world I really like. Hong Kong might be my favorite city in the world. My girlfriend lives there, and
Mhm.
I was kind of looking to get back to Asia via a full-time job anyway. So it just kind of worked out that it was convenient to help her for the event in Shenzhen, that LET Aramco event, which was great. The hospitality is always terrific for the players, and they get huge crowds when they play in Asia, which Liqi loved. She definitely fed off of the home energy. And then finishing up with China National Games, which is like a non-sanctioned event by any of the pro golf tours, but pretty significant for Chinese players. So that was kind of a cool thing to be a part of, and kind of left on a high note with her shooting 8 under.
I mean, if you're going to leave, I mean, why not? Why not when your player shoots 8 under? I guess so.
Yeah, I know, right? And I knew she always had that in her. I think Lichi's a name to look out for. She got to play the Epson next year, and I think she was thinking about doing LETQ school, but she carries her drive when the weather's warm. She's probably a 260 carry, which is 260 yards, which is really, really long for the women's game. Um, Her putting's improved tremendously over the last few months. So she's one of these, really talented up and coming players who I think people ought to look out for because with her distance, she can look at the golf course very differently than somebody who only carries it 235, right? So she's got a tremendous advantage with her length. And while the putting needed some improvement, she's got some pretty good feel around the greens. So definitely a name I'd look out for. She's only 19, which is crazy. These girls are so young when they turn pro
Wow.
now.
Yeah, definitely. So, like you said there, that there's a possibility she might go to Morocco for the LETQ school. Is that,
Yeah,
do you think
is
that's
that where
still on
they're
the
still
cards
having
then?
it? They're still having it in
Yeah,
Marrakesh?
yeah, yeah. So,
Okay.
yeah, the final stage is in Morocco. Yeah, so
Gotcha. Yeah, and I don't know how it works, whether or not she has a world ranking that would get her into the final stage, or she'd have to play the qualifier. But I would imagine, based on her level of play, that she has a pretty good chance to obtain her LET card. And I think LET is a great option, especially for players who might have been stuck playing on the Epson for a few years in America. I mean, you've seen Fernanda Lira kind of obtain like this new resurgence in her career thanks to getting some starts in Europe. You can kind of backdoor yourself into the Scottish Open, Evian if you play really well, the British Open, and you get more world ranking points playing over there versus Epson. I think maybe one or two Epson events actually give out world ranking points. So I think it's a great option. And Felici maybe, yeah, I think her game, I can't remember all the courses on the LET. I haven't done that many events out there, but I would think her length would, I mean, I think she'd become automatically the longest player on the LET. So, um, yeah, we'll see what she decides to do. I mean, we left things on a pretty high note. So I'm excited to see what she does next season, whether or not it's here, Europe, and for her too, it's like why not just travel the world? She's got some sponsors and go see the world, grow up a little bit and learn how to be a pro. She has plenty of time to come back here and play the LPGA.
yeah, definitely. So, like one more example of the kind of so a player that maybe struggled a little bit on the LPGA tour and then went to LET final Q school last year, got a card, and then finished inside the top 40 this year. Daniela Darquea is another example. So Darquea
Yeah,
this year,
that's right.
Dar- Darquea this year on the LET, she got into the final event in Spain, was inside the top 40 this year on the order of merit. So there are
Yeah.
avenues, there are avenues for people that maybe are struggling a little bit on the LPGA. if they
Yeah.
can manage to get a tour card for the LETQ school, then there are avenues. So.
Yeah, and like Epson events nowadays might as well be considered secondary LPGA Tour events, just given how deep the fields are. I mean, you've got LPGA winners who have to play Epson because they've lost their cards, and that's a tough stack of cards to go up against week in and week out, right? And the travel often isn't that convenient on the Epson. I mean, talk about it being like a developmental tour. I mean, some of those events, like the one in Garden City, Kansas, is miserable to get to, right? It's like in the middle of nowhere. So, yeah, LET, I mean, at least in the Europe swing, I don't know if you can take trains anywhere, but travels, I think flights are pretty cheap in Europe. You got the Easy Jets and Ryanairs of the world. And um, I think there's a little more getaway time away from the golf course, a lot more sightseeing, experiencing different cultures. And I firmly believe that the better mindset of players in off the course, that's going to translate to the performance on the course. I think the same thing could be said about caddying. So, like, I loved it. I always felt that I caddied better. Like in Amsterdam, after the rounds, I'm going in the town and seeing like Van Gogh museums, right? And there's no question that as the season gets long, like you need a break from the golf and, anything you can do to kind of keep your mind in in a good place. And I think that's more achievable in Europe versus on the Epson.
I love how you mentioned obviously Amsterdam, and then the first thing that comes to your mind was the Van Gogh Museum. I
Yeah,
think I
with
think
some
for
other,
I think for other people, the first option would be very different. But yeah, there you
yeah, I mean, hey, I just want you to
go.
get to 200 episodes, right? No, I'd never
No,
been there before, and Anna played well that week, so had a lovely time. Every week was
uh,
with her was fun. Her dad came that week too. Great guy.
a little Heineken and a Stroopwafel in Amsterdam as well.
Yeah, Stroop waffles, yes. Heineken's no. I'm not a big drinker, so
Okay.
on the I was the lone guy at some of the LET caddy dinners, probably drinking a Coke versus a pint or whatever you guys call it.
Yeah. No, that's quite funny actually. Right, so just so like obviously going on about 2025, what are the next steps for you going to be once you kind of take this few probably a few years hiatus from the game?
Yeah, I think for me, just having a business interest, having done investment management for a few years and now having been in sports, I'm thinking if there's really a way to combine those interests and work for potentially an agency and corporate sponsorships or one of the sports leagues or teams around the world. There are a few different avenues I can go within that general area. So I think at this point now, it's trying to get in touch with people in the industry, whether or not that's in the US, which it's probably the best place to do it because as much growth as there is in golf in the Middle East and Asia, I mean, you hear about the Saudi money that's being invested in the game, and it's absolutely bonkers. But credit to them, right? Like they've made huge investments in women's golf, and it's I think partially a better product and a better environment for the players as a result with some of those events. Most of the dollars in the sport do stay in the US ecosystem. So we'll see, kind of talk to people about my career path and try to get an opportunity somewhere, but it's not easy. Certainly have thoughts about certain tournaments or shots you remember, like putts you misread and stuff like that. So I guess I wouldn't mind doing an event here and there if it was convenient, but right now the focus is definitely on finding something more permanent where I can just get up in the morning, go to the office, contribute to a team, and like if I have to go back to school in order to put myself in a place to get a good opportunity, then I'm going to do that too. Um, but yeah, it's not easy when you move on. Inertia is powerful, right? Like you actually have to pick yourself up by your bootstraps and make it happen. Nothing really comes to you that easily anymore, and certainly not in this job market, right?
Yeah, no, 100%. I mean, just speaking to you for about 15 minutes beforehand, like speaking about your experiences on the golf course as a professional caddy, like the stresses, the travel, constantly tired, um, the enjoyment kind of comes out of it. So, like,
A little bit, yeah.
to do something that you're kind of, a bit more passionate about, then hopefully that
Yeah.
comes into fruition. So.
Yeah, and I think at least for me, I've come to the realization that some of the times I've caddied best are when my players shot well over par. And it was about adding value in a way that helped your player shoot 74 and not 76 versus helping a player shoot 65 when they ended up shooting 68. And there's something funny about that, right? It's kind of a weird feeling where you want to perform to the best of your ability. The player also wants to perform, and you arguably do your job well. And you're packing your bags up on a Friday night because you were part of a missed cut. And it's one of those weird things about the job, right? Um, I have found that caddies can certainly have an impact on a lot of the decision making that takes place on the golf course, but at the end of the day, a lot of it's out of our control. And I think the more I caddied, the more I realized that in life, like I wanted to have a little bit more control over my future. And like I wish I was a better golfer and I could be out on a pro tour and be hitting the shots, but I'm not, right? So no, I'm content after 5 years of doing it, putting the caddying bib aside and saying like, look, I had fun doing it for the most part, saved up a little bit of money. I met very cool people around the world, whether that be golfers, other caddies, volunteers at events, people I met in pro-ams, and it has certainly given me a better perspective about how the world works, how to deal with people, how to get up in the morning after a tough day. I mean, you can learn so many lessons from caddying, and I would recommend like any high school or college kid with the opportunity to caddy, picks up a bag at least for the summer because you learn so much about just how to handle yourself and interact with other people and just how to be part of a team and knowing your role. It's, I think, crucially important for any sort of career outside the ropes. So, like, I'm really grateful to anybody who had me root for him over the past 5 years, right? Like, I don't want to sound too sour experience, but you know, you know it's time to move on when you show up to the course and you just don't have as much enthusiasm. And it's not fair to the players, quite frankly, to have a caddy
Yeah.
who's not going to be 100% all in because this is their job. It's expensive. This is their livelihood. And you're going to want somebody who is all in.
Yeah, definitely 100% because you actually admitted that to me as well, that maybe you weren't particularly in some spells, possibly this year as well,
Yeah.
that you felt like the enthusiasm that you had on the golf course had kind of gone a little bit. So,
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it was a weird feeling. I can confidently say that whenever ever I was on the course in competition, I did my 110% best. But yeah, when you start thinking about counting down the amount of time until the round's over or thinking about other things when your mind should be on whether or not a certain bunker's carryable or just when it should be on golf and you should be player focused, it's probably time to start thinking about something else.
so as you said, never say never. I believe
Exactly.
no, I believe the first event on the LET schedule is the 5 million per Saudi event. Will we see you
Huh.
in Saudi Arabia?
We'll see. We'll see if the phone rings. Phone
Five
rings and
million.
a business class round trip travel. I'm in. So no, not even. No, is it at Riyadh Golf Club again?
Uh, I just heard that's the first one on the schedule. I presume
Yeah.
it's going to be at Riyadh Golf Club, yeah. But five
Okay.
million price, 5 million
Yeah,
prize fund,
not
Jesus.
bad. Yeah, great gym. Best gym on tour too. Down in the basement. Ask Neil Herman and Annabelle Fuller about that one. We had like little group workouts every evening in that gym. And that's what you remember, right? You remember the workouts. It's not whether or not a player made a putt at a certain moment. It's kind of the relationship. So I'll miss that for sure. So hopefully they can partake in getting after it in the gym this year without me.
So, like, funny that you mentioned Fuller. I've kind of mentioned Annabelle a few times in here about our ridiculous workouts and stuff like that.
Oh, it's bonkers.
Were you able to keep up at all? No.
Yeah, I think she was actually pretty surprised by the way I approached those workouts.
No, that's fair. I don't
She's
think many
strong.
people. Yeah, I don't think many people keep up with Annabelle Fuller, to be honest. So,
No, no, certainly not. She put us through a killer workout in South Africa, actually. She found a pretty good gym in Cape Town or outside of Cape Town, and I don't think I could like walk the next day. So yeah, if I looked funny walking out there at Aaronvale Golf Estate, blame Annabelle Fuller.
crazy, man, absolutely crazy. So going back quickly onto your time on the Ladies European Tour, you mentioned some of the caddies there. So obviously Neil Herman.
Yeah.
There's a couple of others as well. Who did you
Yep.
kind of best get on with, like during your brief stint on the LET?
Yeah. So Neil by far was one of my favorite people to talk to. We met in
Mhm.
Kenya at the beginning of the LET season 2 years ago.
Yeah,
Met randomly at breakfast and just hit it off. So he's one of the guys that I kind of have a running conversation with over WhatsApp. Thomas Podravsky, Czech guy. I think he's more American than I am in terms of his interests. He looped for Ann Van Dam for a while
yeah.
and even did a few LPGA for one of the Metro sisters at the end of the year. Awesome guy, fun to talk to. I always loved catching up with Rory Henderson. We were grouped together in the final round in Shenzhen. Doug, greatest attitude I've ever been around. The guy's always smiling and just trying to make the best out of any situation. So yeah, I just found that in America, the environment around the LPGA is so corporate now. Like there's more money, players have agents. Um, yeah, maybe that's the result of the overall product being a little bit more professional, but I think it results in people, especially if they're able to obtain a bigger slice of that big money pie. It just creates I think people change when there's a lot of money around. And the caddy environment is very competitive. I've never been the most social person, so I was perfectly comfortable rooming by myself and kind of doing my own thing. And quite frankly, with the effort that I tried to put in each week, um, I'd be at the golf course still pretty late at night. And after that, you just kind of want your alone time, right? So I just found that the guys on the LET there was just more banter, right? And sometimes that's what you need, especially when you want to keep a good mindset and be able to just push through some of the obstacles out there. So yeah, I'll definitely miss seeing some of those guys for sure. Alex Williams, I don't like calling him Ginge.
Ginge.
I don't like calling him Ginge.
The
But
giraffe.
he was
The
yeah,
ginger
yeah,
giraffe.
or that he no, he's a fun guy to chat with too.
Yeah, no, definitely. Every time I see Ginger, I'm like, yep, all right, giraffe. Like,
Yeah. Yeah,
he's so top, man, honestly.
nobody else is turning their head when you yell something like that on the range, right? Like he knows. He knows his nicknames.
Yeah, I think he's like in feet, he's like 6'9". I'm only like 5'9", so it feels like I'm just looking up at him, like,
I
hello,
know.
like,
Yeah,
It's
I think
crazy.
the first time I met him was like on the driving range at Upper Montclair Country Club. He was working for, I think, a Moroccan player who was playing on the LPGA.
Ines
Yeah,
Laklowicz, is that right?
yeah, sounds about right. And I made a comment to him, I think without even knowing his name. I'm like, dude, what are you doing not playing basketball? So I don't know if he appreciated it at the time, but just from doing LETQ school with Natalia and caddying a handful of events on that tour, he's one of the guys I enjoyed running into for sure.
So with it being the final stage of LPGA Tour school this week,
Yeah.
so you got like Rory, you got Neil Herman there as well. Will you be
Yep.
keeping an eye out?
Is Herman, is he still with Spitz?
Yeah, yeah, he's with Emma Spitz. Yeah,
Yeah. I mean, I am not a habitual scorecard or scoreboard checker. Um,
yeah.
Even during tournaments, it really wasn't until a Friday, if I knew we were close to the projected cut line, or Sunday down the stretch when I would really be on top of where even my own players stood. So, I kind of find that if I'm a spectator or just observing something from home, maybe at the end of the week, I'll give something a quick check. But I have confidence in those guys to steer their players in the right direction. I know Rory. I think was caddy of the year last year on the LET, and he's been tremendously successful. So for him to be able to take his caddying ability and help his player hopefully play on the LPGA next year would be, I think, a huge accomplishment for him professionally. And he's probably a guy who really deserves it because he's probably accomplished all you can on the LPGA in a pretty short amount of time.
Yeah, no, definitely. So like you mentioned there about the leaderboards and stuff. Uh, I think it was 2024 Portland. Was it still the same for that? Was that still the same for you?
Yeah,
Like
if
coming
I'm
down the
not mis
stretch when like when Mo and
yeah.
Guseva were fighting it out.
Yeah, I think Mo was playing behind us. I'm not sure which group we were in. We were not in the last group, but player Natalia, rather, I think got off to a good start, shot like 7 or 8 under, and then I think what I remember most about that week is we just kind of got in a good flow, which is typically how things are when your player's in good form. Um, when the player's clearly feeling good and controlling their distances, they're making a lot of putts. I think the best thing you can do as a caddy is just keep him in rhythm, keep it simple, and like get out of the way. I mean, what am I going to tell a professional golfer about how to play golf? I'm not, right? If I was a better player, I'd be out playing professional golf somewhere. So I think that's where it kind of comes down to putting, somebody else's needs above your own and realizing that it's not about you. Your job's to keep the player in good form, keep them in rhythm. And I guess things just kind of flow faster and the week goes by a little bit faster. I knew we were in pretty good position towards the end of the event. Um, but sometimes the scoreboard placements get funny too. And I, along with every other caddy, probably has the leaderboard up on their phone at that point. And when the time's right, you take a peek because you want to know where your player is. But I don't remember being obsessive about it. Um, I think she made a nice birdie on 17. And by that point, I think I knew we were a few shots behind. So it was kind of like, hey, try to make birdie on 18, and which is usually a doable thing to do. Um, but no, I remember we made bogey, which in theory cost her some money, but then Angel Yin missed a missed a par putt also. So like we made some of the money back, and that those are some of the things you think about a little bit. Um, but no, I don't think down the stretch I ever thought that it was, we were really going to win the golf tournament. And
No, that's fair. That's
yeah,
fair
and,
enough.
and yeah, caddies probably have different perspectives on this. I mean, I've always been of the mindset that if you play good golf and you play solid in the big moments, and the results kind of take care of themselves. Just try to focus on every shot one at a time. And, maybe you see the leaderboard, and depending on where you stand, you can try to get the player to step on the gas a little bit more. But, um, for the most part, I think it was just about helping Nataliya stay in the moment and enjoy it out there and be loose, and whatever happened, happened.
So I kind of want to take it back to the start for you in your own
Yeah.
kind of journey. So, in terms of the golfing game growing up, was it something you were always interested in, or is it like in terms of your own golfing ability? Have you ever been
Cer
at semi-decent
Certainly not
level?
a factor. Certainly not a factor of my own golfing ability. I grew up on the east side of Manhattan, so golf wasn't that accessible. Where I grew up, right, middle of New York City. In theory, if my family had a country house, you go up to Connecticut, upstate New York, or Long Island, and you have a place to play. But I pretty much grew up playing every competitive sport you could imagine except for golf. Golf was just something that I did with my brother and my dad during the summers. Go to the public course on Martha's Vineyard, take some lessons, hack the ball around, and it was just sort of a fun thing. Wasn't really until I guess in high school my parents got me a junior membership to Olympic Club because at that time they lived outside of San Francisco. Still have that membership. There's the window right here. Never go, but still a pretty cool place to belong to. I should go more. And then in college, went to school in New Hampshire, and we actually had an 18-hole golf course right on campus. So I could ride my bike to the course with my clubs on my back from my freshman dorm in literally 2 minutes. So golf was just kind of something I did with some of my American football teammates in college. Kicked field goals, a lot of kickers liked to play golf, and they were also from the South, so they were big golfers, and we'd go play in the summers, in the evenings after practice, and stuff like that. So kind of a late bloomer. I'm not a great golfer. I think I'm a three index on paper, so not going to disappoint you too much, but certainly not going to wow you. Um, and then it really wasn't until COVID that I gave the caddying thing a real thought, because at that point I had quit my office job and was kind of determining really where to go in life. And my parents were living in Arizona from spending some school breaks out there, and my dad was a member at a course up in North Scottsdale where you took caddies. And I actually found that I really respected those guys. They were very helpful. They were funny. They seemed like they loved their jobs. And that's honestly how I gave caddying a thought as to like a temporary thing to do with my career.
Yeah, so like in terms of, you just admitted that maybe you're not the best golfer in the world. You still be better than me, by the way. I'm absolutely fucking horrendous. So like I wouldn't worry about that. So in terms of like obviously still being an okay golfer, and
Mhm.
then the kind of opportunities, eventually come to take a slight interest into potentially being a caddy.
Yeah.
Did that ever worry you at all? Like at the time, knowing that like,
Yeah,
oh, what kind of advice are
for sure.
professionals going to take? Are professionals going to take from like a professional hacker? If like, no offense, but
Yeah.
like a professional
No,
hacker.
it did. And it's a point that came up when I got fired for the first time. So keep this in mind. I was working on the Korn Ferry. I packed my entire life up into my car, drove to Louisiana for the first event, happened to be on the bag for a win in my fifth event ever caddying on the Korn Ferry, and then 4 weeks later, I get let go. And, I've never pretended to be the perfect caddy, was very much a rookie at the time and probably still walking on eggshells. But one of the things that came up actually during the conversation was the player and Austin Smotherman, who I think did awesome on the Korn Ferry this year, who's and is going to get another crack at the PGA Tour, which is awesome for him. Um,
Yep.
who was like, I could probably benefit from having somebody on my bag who has more competitive golf experience, just in terms of thinking when to push, when to hold back, thinking about different shot shapes, right? On this hole, okay, is it the 3 wood, right? When they because you don't want to exactly go for it and bring bunkers into play. Um, it was kind of annoying to get let go a few weeks after a win, but I think that some players appreciate somebody who has been somewhat close to their footsteps in terms of who they receive advice from. Maybe it's better for their confidence, but I actually think a lot of players appreciate having an outside view coming from somebody who never really played competitive golf because I'm not biased. It's not like I play a consistent draw, so out of the trees, I'm going to see this shot shape differently. Or I play a fade, so I want a player to hit the fade in a certain situations. You kind of see the game for what it is. And I think you focus on the right things, which is being able to score, right? It's about getting up and down for par when you need to. It's about putting well from inside 10 feet when you have the chance. So kind of being an independent observer, I think, has had its merits for me out there, but every player is different.
So I guess the question I'll ask for you. So in terms of maybe someone that's potentially looking to go the caddy route, but has maybe limited golfing experiences compared to some of the backgrounds that maybe some of the pro players are looking for. How
Yeah,
difficult a job do you think? How difficult a job do you think that would be for the guy or girl with limited experience to try and thrive?
you've got to be willing to invest in yourself and take a very long-term approach because oftentimes in a competitive round of golf, there's just a lot going on. You got to give your players numbers. You need to keep track of what the wind is doing. Sometimes the player wants his water bottle at an odd time, or before he or she hits a shot, they back off and want another club. So I'd say skill development is more a factor of attitude and just putting yourself out there in uncomfortable situations. And I think one thing that helped me out a lot is and one of the first players for whom I ever caddied for, Steve LeBrun, who was an awesome guy on the Korn Ferry, told me, watch the old guys because they make caddying as many things that are going on during a round of golf. Like they make caddying look really, really easy and they're super smooth out there. So I honestly just try to keep my head on the swivel, obviously be coachable if my player wanted me to be a certain way or wanted me to make some changes. But I was pretty observant. And I remember 2 or 3 years ago, Nat was grouped with Lauren Coughlin, and she had Terry McNamara, who I think is one of the winningest caddies of all time on any tour.
Yeah.
He's like 60 something years old to tons of success and really quite a nice guy too. And I remember watching him thinking, God, he makes it look really easy. So you just have to be willing to understand it's going to take some time and you want to be smooth and not cause any distractions and bring attention on yourself and you kind of get the hang on it of it from being out there generally.
Has there ever been occasions for yourself at tournaments where, say, as you just mentioned there, that you're paired with LC and Terry McNamara, like obviously with
Yeah.
what Terry's done over the years with Annika and so on.
Yeah.
Do you ever have you ever caught yourself have you ever caught yourself kind of maybe observing too much potentially what they're doing, or does
Yeah, I
that happen
mean,
on a golf
no, it's
course?
a good question because at the end of the day, what matters most is the caddy helps his or her player, right, do the best they can. So, yeah, you can't fanboy too much. On the Korn Ferry, there were times when my player was grouped with dudes who had won on the PGA Tour before, and in a start, Aaron Baddeley's Aussie, but he lives in Scottsdale and he's had a tremendous career. Austin was grouped with Aaron Baddeley and like that was super cool, right? So you gotta kind of stay away from being starstruck and
Yeah.
realize that being a caddy is like a real job with real responsibilities. But at the same time, you gotta stay relaxed. You can't get anxious and really show that you're nervous, even though down the stretch of a tournament, your heart might be beating like 200 beats a minute. So there's a fine line. Experience is a lot of it, to be honest, right? The more times you put yourself in a position, the more you're going to be prepared for it. And it's one of those jobs in which you learn by making mistakes, unfortunately, right? Because the player pays the price if you make a mistake that costs the player shots. Thankfully, it hasn't happened often, but every successful caddy out there probably has a story about a wrong number, a missed read, um, a bad club, and it's just part of the job. Like it's an imperfect job, and you just, yeah, you just need to keep at it really and put yourself in situations. It's a low barrier to entry job, right? You don't need a PhD to become a caddy, but not everybody can do it at an elite level, is what I would say. So it's kind of a neat job in that respect.
So taking it back to like, but back to the day with you. So you said that you were pretty competitive in sports growing up.
Yeah.
Was there any other sports in particular that maybe you got to a semi decent level at?
Yeah, I mean, I'm still a pretty good tennis player. Um, was kind of a late bloomer, picked it up seriously in high school and played my share of national tournaments before getting hurt. I mean, every athlete who thinks about what could have been has a sob story, right? But tennis I was pretty good at. Played a lot of soccer. I'll call it soccer if you don't mind, Craig. And then ended up through,
I'm just shaking my head right
yeah,
now.
yeah, just like some of the LET caddies, right? Here we go with the soccer thing again.
Soccer.
But through being a decent soccer player, I got familiar with the technique, kicking footballs. So ended up walking on at my university, had a spot on the team. Didn't play very much, but I guess you could say I got to a decent level in American football too.
Nice. And obviously, with American football being probably the number one sport in America, like to get
Yeah.
any spot on a team is probably a great privilege.
Yeah, I mean, I think getting recruited for colleges is a pretty competitive process. I was fortunate to get in the school before I really talked to the coach seriously about getting the spot. So in theory, it was probably a little easier for them to open up a spot for me. And coincidentally, it was the same coach my dad had played for in college. So
That's
like the
nice.
connection, like I admit the connection definitely helps. And it was fun. Like made a lot of new friends, got a lot better. Um, Junior year. I didn't play at all, but I got an Ivy League championship ring as a part of the team. So, you look back on some of the funny moments for sure. And I was on the same team with my brother, so that was kind of cool.
Yeah, just speaking about the college American football, that is absolutely massive nowadays. Like they play in like, was it
Yeah,
like
bonkers.
80,000 stadiums, 90,000 stadiums? It's always
Yeah,
full as well. What is it about, especially American football in America, especially the college
yeah.
American football? Why is it so popular, do you think?
I think part of it is individuals who have either graduated from a certain university or grown up in a certain part of the country where there's a successful college team like to be loyal to a certain school. And, there's quite a lot of pomp and circumstance around college football. You've got the marching band, the stadiums are massive. It's readily available on TV. You can buy jerseys. So there's just this giant multi-billion dollar business around college sports. I mean, I think there was a private equity firm that was going to invest like $2 billion dollars in the Big Ten conference for 10% of the conference, right? And professional teams are changing hands for billions of dollars, and just the whole ecosystem, I think, especially with the media rights, has gotten huge. But yeah, college sports are fun because I think people have like a real affiliation with the school that they attended, and now, with the sport so readily available on TV, you can keep up with it. And I think a lot of schools too have invested the earnings that they bring in through athletics to improve their academic product. So it's just, and non-athletes at these colleges benefit from that too. So, or probably receive most of the benefits on an academic level. So, secondary education or university education in the US is a giant industry, and they've made a way to improve it and just make it even bigger, I think, thanks to sports. So it's kind of a blessing and a curse, right? Like you want to maintain the split between what's pro and what's amateur, and now college athletes in the US can basically get paid. And that includes like golfers. So great for them, but I think with major sports like football and basketball, it's pretty easy to see the demise of the amateur athlete.
So that kind of leads on to your university days. So, like
Yeah.
for education, where did you go for university, and how enjoyable was that whole, American university experience?
I mean, I think it was generally enjoyable. I grew up in a household in which there were pretty strict academic standards, and you did well in school, in middle school, high school, and then you went to the best college you could. So I went to Dartmouth College in Hanover, New Hampshire, small school in the middle of nowhere. It's about 2 hours north of Boston with no traffic. And academically, had a good experience, was fortunate to be a part of the football team, made some friends outside of athletics too. And, Dartmouth's situated right on the Connecticut River. So when the weather's good and it's not freezing cold, there was snow on the ground in May during my freshman year, by the way. Um,
Wow.
it's a gorgeous setting. So very, very lucky to have attended a school of that caliber. Probably one of, I think there have been some graduates were part of the men's golf team who have like won on, I think he might have won on the Challenge Tour or something like that. Maybe a few guys have tried their hands at the pros, but it's not really a school that's known for its athletics. But I'm very grateful to be an alum of Dartmouth, and it was a good time. But yeah, after school, you did some finance internships. My dad is an investment banker by trade, so when it came to thinking about what was next, I kind of wanted to be like my dad and jump between a couple jobs in investment management before COVID. Um, did well, had a decent experience, but come COVID, especially when working remotely became a thing, I think I started to question how I wanted to spend my time, and that seemed like a pretty good moment to pause and switch gears for a little bit. I had always thought I wanted to work in sports, probably on the business side, but after a few months of deciding what to do, I guess I realized you could go home with 500 plus bucks in your pocket from carrying golf bags at a country club. So decided just to give it a crack, and here we are, right? It's you've talked to caddies before. It's one of those jobs you joke about with your friends when you're watching sports highlights late at night. It's like how awesome is it for that guy who gets to carry the bag when Scotty Scheffler or whomever wins a golf tournament? And it's neat to say that I lived it for a few years.
That's not exactly true in terms of the glamorous side of it, anyway, that's for sure. So we'll just say
Yeah.
that. But
Yeah, there's I think the TVs only capture a little bit of what professional golf really is. People bring up the episode on Full Swing, that Netflix series with me when
yeah,
they ask about what being a caddy is really like, and I tell them that's the biggest load of crap ever about what the caddying lifestyle is. Like those guys fly in private with their players and walking around their big houses and stuff like that. It's kind of a rough and tumble lifestyle and character building. That's for sure.
and you're just flying commercial like American Airlines, like for example, or something like that. Like,
Yeah, not flying up front, if that's what you're trying to get at.
yeah, definitely no private jets for you, Jonathan. So.
No, no, should have put more of my earnings in Bitcoin and then maybe that'd be a possibility.
No,
Certainly not.
that's fair enough. So golf in general. So were you ever the biggest watcher of golf on TV over the years, or is it something you've just kind of, grown to appreciate as you've kind of
Yeah.
got into the game as a caddy?
Probably the latter. I think it's always a sport. I still go back and forth about whether or not it's a sport or a game, by the way. Um, Probably I'd say a
Fair enough.
game that I wanted to be good at eventually.
Uh-huh.
Just to be able to, I mean, it's so difficult, right? You got to drive it well, you got to hit the irons well, you got to hit out of the fairway, out of the rough, and to be able to establish that much control over a little white ball is a very, very difficult thing to do. So I think just based on my competitiveness, I always wanted to be good, just clearly never put enough work in order to do that. Um, but yeah, I think in college, the only time I never really paid attention in class is if there was a major going on. So I think that was typically the Masters because we were in
Yeah.
school then. Um, so I watched the majors, watched the final round of the players and stuff like that. I would play. My dad's a pretty good player and my brother's a good player. So when I was home from college on breaks, because it's so nice in Arizona during the winter, like I'd play a lot of golf. And I think that's how I got somewhat decent at the game. But to make the jump from actually watching a major on TV to being involved with the game and being inside the ropes is not something I ever thought I would do.
No, that's fair enough. And in terms of being in the Arizona area, so have you ever been much to TPC Scottsdale at all?
I have played it a few times a long time ago. Um, have been in town when the tournament's going on, but don't really take part in the frenzy. There was a guy a tour pro, Kelly Craft, who I got to know a little bit because he played out of the club in Texas where I club caddied, and I think I went to go watch him finish up on a Friday morning. And to be honest with you, it was glorious. The hard partying hadn't started. There was nobody there, and it was still relatively cool. So like it was the perfect time to go watch golf. Um, and then I went on a Sunday once during the year when we also hosted the Super Bowl, and I think the crowd clears out pretty quickly there on Sunday as a result. So not the biggest partier, but and I think it's gotten out of hand a little bit for my liking
Just a little bit, not too
over the past
much.
couple of years. But the organization that benefits from the proceeds, the Thunderbird, is extremely charitable. So, a lot of good, I think, comes out of having the tournament here.
Yeah, there's always jokes. Instead of the waste management, it's the wasted management. Like that's just how it
Oh,
is. Like
totally.
it's
Oh,
like the
yeah.
partying vibe.
Dude, it's astonishing how many people will fly out here like just for the event, right? It's
Yeah,
wild, right? I mean, I can't fathom that. I don't think I'd get on a plane and pay a bunch of money for hotels just to get wasted with my friends, but it's almost like the tournament's got its own little economy, around it here. And being a resident of the area, it's like we'll take the business activity, right?
No, fair enough.
Yeah, buy as much beer as you want. Like the people here kind of benefit from it. Maybe not the traffic, but I think you know what I mean.
Yeah, no, definitely. So a bit more about your caddying background. So it was round about the COVID year, and then you got a few starts on the Korn Ferry Tour with Austin Smotherman.
Yeah.
Um, I believe not long after that time as well, you got the chance to work for a certain major champion now, Ronnie Yin. So
Yes.
how did that opportunity come about to work for Ronnie and before she became this massive superstar that she is now?
Yeah. So after caddy in that first year on the Korn Ferry, I got a text message from a swing coach who filled in as a caddy on the Korn Ferry for his guys from time to time about a girl, like this 19-year-old Chinese phenom who was going to come over and play the LPGA. And he thought that given I speak okay Mandarin, that she would have benefited from having a Chinese caddy or a Chinese speaking caddy. Um, so yeah, that's how I got my first job on the LPGA. Played okay certain weeks. I wasn't particularly experienced or confident at the time. So, I wish that it had been 3 or 4 years in when I was able to caddy for her just because I would have known more and probably handled the situation better. But yeah, most weeks neither of us were perfect, let's put it that way. So after a couple months, she decided to move on. But I always had the thought that she was going to be really, really good. And a lot of that was just related to her work ethic. She's a really good ball striker when she showed up, but her full swing wedge game wasn't great. Short game wasn't awesome, and she kind of struggled putting. But based on some of the conversations that I had with Holton Freeman, who's based down in Florida, remains her swing coach to this day, she was pretty tenacious in wanting to improve like that area or those areas of her game. So I am not surprised that she has had success. It's great for her. I like seeing players when they reach their potential. And yeah, it's like it's not weird at all, right? It's one of those jobs where you've got to learn from experience and I wish I'd been more seasoned when she got here, but we had some good times and good finishes on the course and just kind of wished her well at the end. So it's cool to see her having gotten so good.
Would would you say that's probably your biggest regret, not being a little bit more seasoned, especially at that time, considering
Maybe.
obviously what Ronnie has done now, major champion, former world number
Yeah.
one.
I mean,
Would you say that's the
maybe.
biggest regret at all?
I don't know if yeah, well, I mean, hindsight's 2020, so of course I can regret maybe a decision here and there, right? But things happen so quickly out there for reasons you can't control when you're a caddy. Like, how do you know that even if I had caddied more for her that first season and let's say she'd had a top 10, that she wasn't going to go find another caddy in the off season, right? So crazy things happen around the game. I mean, I've seen players get fired after one round, right? Or caddies get fired after one round. Like stuff happens. So there's really no way to control it. Um, so it's kind of like a yes and no answer, right? Like I wish in the moment I'd been able to be of better service to her because I mean she showed up with that deer in the headlights look. Like she spoke no English. She had two people traveling with her who hadn't spent any time in the US and didn't know what they were doing. I mean, the first time I met them was at an impound lot inland from San Diego because they parked the car in the wrong spot overnight, right? So I'm helping her translate and get her car out of the impound. They're paying a fine. And like, that's how my time caddying with her got off to a start. So Um, no, regardless, like you got to learn from experience, and I consider myself lucky maybe to have caddied for her even for a short while because I can take bits and pieces of what I did, what I could have done, and what I should have done, and I use that towards helping out the next player.
So we'll go back into your time with Nataliya Guseva. Like
Yeah.
this was always going to be the
Hmm.
major talking point because, like, looking at from the outside, you would say Natalia is probably the most success that you've had as a professional caddy. Would
Yeah,
that
by
be fair
far.
to say?
By far. Not even a question.
So, first of all, how did that kind of come about? Like
Yeah.
getting the job offer from Natalia, and second of all, how would you kind of describe, in your own view, the kind of year and a half that you had together?
Yeah, so like a lot of jobs that you get from caddying, they just happen because you're around, you show your face, and um, you just form connections out there with players and caddies. So I think I'm not 100% sure on this, but I'm pretty sure that it came through a player, a Canadian player named Selena Costabile, who I'd caddied for the year before at Q School. I think second stage of Q School down in Florida. And I think I did maybe one more event for Selena, but she was always a girl out there who I talked to quite a bit, and we were very friendly. And Natalia, I think the first time I saw her was when she was grouped with my player in Q Series like 3 years ago. And I guess in Russia they add an A to the girl's name, last name in the family. And there's a player, pro hockey player, who I think has gone back to Russia named Nikita Gusev. I'm a pretty big hockey fan. So I was like, second or third hole, it's like, let's just break the ice and try to get a little chatter in the group, right? Like just for fun, right? I didn't think I'd ever caddy for her, but I was like, hey, is your brother Nikita Gusev? And she said, no, but my sister dated him for a little bit. I'm like, huh, okay, go figure. So I think for the rest of the round, there was just a little bit of small talk. And then she did her thing on the Epson, and Rick Croft, um, who's a pretty experienced caddy, was with her. They split like most of the way through the year. And I think Selena put us in touch. So I caddied for her at an Epson event in Pendleton, Oregon, the last week of August. Made the cut, but it was nothing special. And then I got a text the next week asking from Natalia asking if I'd stay with her for the rest of the year. So we tied up some of the loose ends financially, and I agreed to start with her again at the next event, which was in um, or two events later, which was in Utah, in Midway, Utah. So in the Salt Lake City area where I go ski every year in the winter. So it's one of my favorite areas of the country. I was like, why not? This girl's talented. She hits it far. It was somewhat enjoyable to be out there on the course with her. And 4 rounds later, she's holding a trophy, right? She played awesome that week. Putted great, hit it far. There were, I think, six par fives on the golf course, so fairly conducive to a bomber like her. And then that got her high enough in the rankings, so she qualified for Q Series, got her LPGA card through Q Series, won LATQ school, which was a lot of fun in Morocco, and she decided to keep me with her for her rookie year on the LPGA. So that's kind of how it came about. Um, and was with her for a little over a year and a half. A lot of ups and downs throughout the process. Can't say it was all the most enjoyable, and it's probably appropriate that the our time together came to an end when it did. But no, she's tremendously talented, and I thank her for playing well the right weeks. I think that's one of the last things I said to her when she got rid of me in Hainan this year was like, I appreciate you playing well certain weeks and making me a bunch of money. So it's the life of a caddy, right? Like everything's going well and player racks up a bunch of top tens, and unfortunately we just kind of lost that spark that we had. So yeah, that came to an end like 5 events into this season. But I'd still like to see her do well. I don't wish ill upon her by any means.
So that 2024 rookie season for Natalia was a fairly decent one, and there was quite a
Yeah.
few weeks of that year that you managed to get yourself, well, Natalia got herself into contention to try and
Yeah.
to try and get that maiden victory. So, especially with it being a rookie season as well, did that kind of surprise you just how well she took to life on the LPGA Tour, or was there no surprise at all that this was a potential superstar that could go on to win pretty easy?
Yeah, I mean, was certainly aware of her talent level, and I think the year on the Epson Tour really helped her get used to travel because that's a huge aspect of maturing and becoming a pro. Um, I'm trying to think about how to say this in a politically correct way, but I think she is somebody also who would see the purse amount every week and like get her pumped up, and she would get herself pumped up based on that amount. So I guess I always figured she had it in her to rack up some pretty good results. Um, you never really plan for those moments when down the stretch you're on a bag and the player has an opportunity to win the golf tournament. But I think she did a pretty good job of keeping the expectations high enough as a competitive athlete, but also in certain moments she would tell me, or like before CME last year, she was like, "Hey, I just want to enjoy this week." So she did a pretty good job of keeping it in perspective, and there's no question that when a player's calmer and having a good time off the course and well prepared, that somebody with her distance can go out there and fire a bunch of low numbers. So not really surprised by the amount of success she had that first year. From being inside the ropes with her, I can tell you, in addition to, doing the driving some weeks and being a dinner partner and spending a lot of time with her off the course, it definitely was not easy. Um, there are a few different reasons behind that. But at the end of the day, like I was really happy for her that her career had gotten off to a good start, and I was fortunate to have maybe played a little bit of a role in it. I've never taken credit for good golf shots. I think the player has a job that's a million times harder than the caddies, but perhaps there was a way about how I caddied for her that maybe allowed her to be in a mindset so she could go play good golf that first year, right?
Yeah, would you say that, especially that performance in Portland, was that the most memorable experience for you with Natalia during that season, do you think? Or
Portland, I think Hawaii. I think she was solo second in Hawaii, and
Mhm.
that purse was like twice the size of Portland. So I remember that week being pretty enjoyable. Um, it's tough to look back on, right? Because you go through the season and there's so many ups and downs, and it's such a tough season. Um, I just remember on hole 18 at CME during our fourth round, she hit the green for a second shot and looked like she had 30 feet, and kind of remembered giving her the putter, and I just said, "Hey, this walk's well deserved. Enjoy it." And I don't know if anything hit me at that moment, but I think there's a lot of buildup around CME, and it was like at that moment, okay, like she had achieved a pretty good amount her first year. So like when you're in the middle of a round, you want to try to stay in the moment and focus on every single shot. Um, so I couldn't tell you that like that Portland week or that Hawaii week really felt particularly special. Maybe until the paycheck hit the bank account, but I don't know. You try to stay in the moment over the course of the season because like you never know when it can end, right? Like a certain caddy can get let go. That guy's been on the bag for major wins, and then she thinks that caddy gives her an edge, so I lose my job. Like that situation out there happens all the time. So you try to stay in the moment, do the best you can, and yeah, I think certain flights leaving tournament locations felt better than others, depending on how the week went. But it's just a lesson. Like you just got to stick with it, and it's a long. Tell yourself it's a long journey.
So we'll kind of finish with questions about yourself now. So
Hmm.
what do you think is the best piece of advice that you've received in terms of obviously becoming a caddy and trying to do the best of your ability on the golf course?
Yeah, so I go back to that piece of advice that Steve LeBrun gave me one of the first few weeks I was out there on the Korn Ferry when he said, watch how smooth the old guys are. It is incredible how attentive professional golfers are. They notice everything. And the more you can do to make the process of talking about a number smooth, keeping them in rhythm between golf shots, and really just being there for them in the moment and then suddenly sliding out of the picture so they can focus. I think that actually has a really big impact on their performance because the fewer things they have to worry about as professional golf is really, really stressful. I think the better they're going to perform. So I think I go back to that bit and just trying not to be a distraction and going about my business smoothly is probably the best piece of advice.
So you mentioned earlier on that you are a big foodie. So what would you say is your favorite type of cuisine?
Any sort of Asian food, preferably Japanese, I'd say.
Nice. So anything in particular? So probably either sushi or teriyaki or whatever else.
Yeah, sushi, big sushi fan.
Would you have that all the time or just like on the odd occasion?
Yeah, if I was not budget conscious and there was fresh fish around me, yeah, I'd probably go for sushi before anywhere else in like any geography.
Ah, that's fair. Uh, so what makes Jonathan Katzman happy then?
Oh man, damn, that's a deep question.
No, just curious.
What
That's
makes
all.
me happy? Being around sports, around family, being thoughtful. I like to think a lot and write. Um, but I guess just being around people with common interests. So over a dinner, in an office environment, walking around the golf course, I think the company you keep's pretty important. Um, so yeah, whether or not it's that, time with the girlfriend, whatever, right? Common interests are certainly a winner.
Favorite type of music?
Electronic. I'm not a huge music guy, but I listen to it if I need like a quick step when I'm working out.
God, I can imagine you at a rave or something like that, like cutting some shapes at a rave.
Yeah, yeah, that's the first time I've gotten that one.
No, that's fair.
I
That's fair.
appreciate it though. Probably make me seem a little more fun than I really am.
Come on, I'm trying to be impartial on this podcast. I'm
Yeah.
not trying to make you out to be anything. So,
Yeah.
favorite country? I think you might have said it earlier actually, but we'll go with it. Your favorite country?
Oh man. Let's see. South Africa was pretty cool.
Nice.
Having been there this year, Erenville was beautiful. The food's good. The currency's pretty weak, so it's kind of a nice time to be traveling down there as an American. But I thought South Africa was a pretty fun week.
Nice. I always hear about the South African, all the South African food, like the big chunks of meat, etc. Like I'd be in heaven. So
Chunks of meat. I don't know if you're a big wine guy. I'm not,
not
but
really. No.
excursion to the local vineyards, I think, was a very popular activity amongst players and caddies that week. And then having Cape Town, Table Mountain right there, which is beautiful, made for just an awesome getaway. It's like those are the weeks when you think, man, I'm basically getting paid to go on vacation.
No, that's fair. And sport and idol growing up. So I imagine with your big tennis background, potentially like a tennis
Yeah, I mean,
player.
I was a big Roger Federer fan
Yeah,
growing up
I
for
thought that
sure.
would be the answer, to be
But
fair.
let's see. I haven't gone to a bunch of tennis tournaments and seen a lot of random players play. There's a Japanese dude, Yuichi Sugita, who was pretty fun to watch. I think I went for a period of time when I told people Yuichi Sugita was like my favorite tennis player. Um, and then having grown up in New York City and been a big hockey fan, Mike Richter, number 35, was the goalie for many years when growing up. So I think I was Mike Richter a few times for Halloween, and he was one of the athletes I grew up, who I looked up to. I'm sorry, growing up.
So the last question. So obviously, with your time as a professional caddy,
Hmm.
okay, it might come to it might be at an end like as it currently stands. But for aspiring caddies, what would be the one big piece of advice that you give them?
So it's kind of two pieces of advice, but they're related. So one is just get yourself out there, whether it be at a local country club or a links course or filling in for a buddy out on one of the pro tours. Like get yourself out there and get experience. And two is be coachable. I think it's a career in which nonstop, not coaching, but you learn so much from experience out there, how to scout a course properly, what a ball does out of the rough, out of a certain kind of rough when you hit a certain club, that you really just have to be open-minded and take it all in. And got to give yourself a little bit of grace too, because it's hard. There's just a lot of information out there to be consumed, but if you can find a way to just have a growth mindset and say, I might make mistakes, but I'm going to do everything I can to absorb whatever information possible. Like, there's no question you're going to be a better looper who can help players make more informed decisions after that.
I actually forgot to ask you. What's your plans looking like for the festive season then?
So I am in Arizona for about the next month. It's hard with how good the weather is here to not want to go anywhere else. And then the day after Christmas, I'll go with my family to go ski in Utah, not too far from where Natalia actually won that Epson tournament. In
Oh,
fact,
nice.
I stayed with Glenn Osowski, my caddy and mentor, that week on the Epson, and it's right across from one of the bases at the mountain where we ski. So I think there were a lot of good vibes that week, and it was kind of meant to be. Um, and then from Utah, I will go to Japan. With my girlfriend to ski. I'm trying to convert her from being a snowboarder, so high stakes that week. Um, so we'll be there for 5 days, and then it's either decide to go back to school, find a job. But I love to ski. It's one of my favorite things to do. I've been skiing since I was 2 years old, and I actually caught the last few days of ski season in Japan last year after getting let go by Natalia in China. So I guess it's kind of coming full circle, and Japan's calling my name again.
Well, that sounds absolutely great, mate. So, all the best for obviously enjoy Christmas, etc., and then enjoy your skiing. Sure you'll have fun. Um,
Yeah.
thanks so much. Thanks so much for your time, Jonathan. It's been great to have you on, and I wish you I wish you all the best, obviously, and what's next in
Yeah.
your future endeavours. So yeah,
Sounds good.
keep in contact, and
Yeah,
it's been
100%,
great to
man.
have you on.
No, it's been cool seeing your rise in golf media, particularly with your focus on the women's game. Um, it's neat to see that new broadcast deal that the LPGA has coming up for this year because women's golf probably isn't covered enough. So good for you for taking a leap of faith and getting involved and enjoyed hearing about all your adventures and your time behind the scenes. So would love to stay in touch and keep you posted on how things go, but enjoy that cold weather back in the UK and have a Merry Christmas season for sure.
Cheers, mate. Cheers for
Cheers. All right,
that.
man. Well, thank you for having me on.
Yeah, pleasure, mate. All the best. Cheers.
Thanks, man. All right. Have a great night,
Cheers.
okay? All right. See ya.
You too.